I just want everyone to know that I've hit record already. So
we should just start in now.
I think we have.
now that we already knew that.
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast where Josh McQuistion has been waiting for you to unleash 2 travel trips of high school All-Americanness on you. And basically, I don't have to do shit on this pod today. I'm just going to let Bob and Eddie and Josh talk about all their travels. And I'm just going to sit here and continue watching Oklahoma and Florida State, which this is the second time I've rewatched it. It's not a bad watch. Like
it's really not.
You know,
top 5 bowl game of the bowl season, right?
I mean, it's
not better
a good
than
game.
Not better than the 2 semifinal games. Not better than Arkansas, Kansas.
Not better than the Cotton Bowl.
USC,
not better
Tulane.
than the Cotton Bowl, but I would say that it's right after those 4.
And it's 2 traditional powers, which
good
makes
uniform
it better.
matchup.
Good uniform matchup, yeah.
Really good uniform matchup. I'll take Florida State.
Oh, you wore the red in the national championship game, so they were the white in this one.
I'll take Florida State minus 2.5.
Gutsy call.
I think it's a pretty good bet. I like where it's headed. Anyway, we welcome in Josh McQuistion, who is back from San Antonio, back from Orlando. He's been all over. We had the Under Armour All-American game on where I thought Jackson Arnold looked really good, at least on a couple of drives, and led really the only elongated touchdown drive of the day. Everything else was pretty much big plays. But, Josh, let's just throw it to you first. Let's hit on that, just the Under Armour All-American game, kind of your thoughts there. And maybe not just Jackson Arnold, but some of the other players at OU involved.
It was as good a performance as I've seen from a group of OU, I guess signees at a game that I can remember. I mean, like collectively, I don't think anyone hurt their stock. There are certainly groups that jumped their stock, and we can get into the individuals. I don't mean to say groups. There were players that definitely helped how they are seen. Rivals 24/7. You know, I know guys in every network. I had conversations with every guy in guys in every network, and I don't think there's any doubt that some guys really impressed some people more than maybe they even expected. So there's, it was. I mean, again, it's just, and I thought it was interesting too. I was thinking about this while I was flying back. Is Under Armour used to be something I would cover. I didn't have to cover. Now, I mean, you look at it, Oklahoma's, their top 3 commitments were in that top 4. If you throw in Caden Green as well, we're all in that game. Jaquez Petaway. I mean, really, it doesn't get until you get to like Makari Vickers playing in the Army game. And it used to be very different. And I think some of that is connected to how well Oklahoma's doing in the Southeast, which has always kind of been where Under Armour draws a lot of their talent. I mean, you go back to the Julio Jones, AJ Green days, those kind of things. So, I thought it was a very solid performance. Like I said, we can get into, I don't want to give one of my long 7-minute answers, but the guy that stood out to me is PJ Adebawore. I'll go ahead and say PJ Adebawore is going to be a consensus 5-star, in the final rankings update. He may be the number 1 defensive end in the country.
Yeah, he looked, outside of, and because he was on the field with a bunch of high school players, you didn't notice, you don't notice the size difference like you will next year when he's on a college football field. But, he doesn't look like a guy that has a ton of ways to go in the weight room. I mean,
what's good for him is because, so often we see these guys that are like big and jacked up top, and you can tell they've never done a leg day in their life. He's not that way. He's bigger in the lower body than he is kind of in, in the torso. So like he's going, and I think we can all attest, he's about to hit an age where you start that starts filling out, that frame starts to build and grow. And he is, I think Brent said on signing day, he was like 228. He looks like he's 240. He is an impressive looking dude. And at the same time, you acknowledge he could carry 25 more pounds without even breaking a sweat. He is he's just so long-armed and long-legged. You're like, he can just put 5 pounds here, 5 pounds there, and you won't even notice it. Like, it's just, he is, again, it really, I don't think it's any exaggeration to say that he has an argument to be the number one defensive end in the country, a top 10 player in the country. Now, I'm not saying these are the things that are going to happen, but to me, I think the conversation becomes between him and Samuel Mpemba and Keon Keeley. And I saw Keeley yesterday at Army, and we'll go into a little bit of that, but I thought Keeley was a little bit soft, very talented. Don't get me wrong, an absolute freak of nature athletically, but a little bit soft. And I don't think anybody has ever watched PJ and had that thought. And on the other side, Samuel Mpemba, who is incredibly twitchy, incredibly talented, is about 6'2.5", 6'3", kind of like a bulky R. Mason Thomas would be probably a good comparison. Super twitched up, very athletic. And again, he's 255. I mean, he's a big, sturdy guy. But PJ, with his agility and his burst, to go with the length that he has, I mean, it's just rare. You don't see guys like this very often.
When was the last time Oklahoma had somebody coming in that offered just his physical traits, I guess? Nobody that I've seen. Like, I mean, it really is. He is, I was trying to think, it kind of reminds me of, from a body type perspective, of like Frank Alexander, that kind of long-armed, real kind of like carries 260 and looks kind of flat-bellied, but like with the burst of like an RJ Washington. Like, maybe not quite that much burst, but that kind of, that agility, that change of direction, that's what amazes me. I mean, the guy, like, I kind of thought when I watched this tape, I was like, okay, I love this, but when he's going against, guys in the Kansas City area and not, the elite of the elite sometimes. And I thought, well, once he gets out here, it's going to be different. Guys, I watched him, and Eddie, I know you've put up the video and some people have seen this as well, but like, they'd be running read plays and he's covering the quarterback and the running back. Like, he would stay in, watch the exchange, and then if Jackson Arnold or Jaden Rashada gives, he'll just run with the running back. Like, I mean, and he can basically do it. And it's absurd. He's one of those guys that Kirby Smart was talking about in that one of those interviews leading up to, I think it might have been the SEC championship or something. I know that we talked about it here on the U40, just as far as you have players that can make up for, being out of position just because they're superior athletes to the other guy. Yep. That thing I talked about, that coaching clinic that Smart was at, was like, well, we were actually wrong here, but this guy made us right. I mean, that's what you're talking about with PJ Adebawore, like that kind of guy. And I came out of it, and again, I mean, I'm watching Jackson Arnold, I'm watching Peyton Bowen, Jaquez Pettaway, Caden Green. Caden Green had a really good week as well. I mean, we can dive into that as well. PJ, I kind of thought this might happen, but he went even a little farther than I thought he would. Caden surprised me, but I think PJ is the best prospect in this class. Like, I'm not entirely sure how close it is, and that's not to say there's not really good guys in this class. I think if PJ had come in with the notoriety from like his junior year, where he's a top 50 guy, we could be having a legitimate like top 3 in the play, like in the country kind of conversation. That's how special I think he is. It kind of highlights just how good this class is too. When we're talking about the Under Armour and the evaluation process, it's like talking about the Under Armour game, or you're talking about the Army game, and you're talking about damn near half of the class almost that is playing in some of these games. And there's more of those guys that would have played, a Derek LeBlanc or somebody like that, had he not decided to go practice early. Yeah, 11 of 25 played and 12 of 25 accepted invitations. Like, that's what you're looking for. I mean, that's what you're trying to do. That's not quite Alabama territory, but when you start moving to that 15, 16 range, that's when you're top 3, top 4 class in the country kind of area.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm just sitting here. You guys,
Dillon Gabriel sending out cryptic tweets left and right.
Left and right by Dillon.
Really? I got to get on Twitter, I guess.
He is fired up about Matthew Lee.
Well, good, because at least we have some indication that Dillon Gabriel likes something about Norman right now. Like,
I just don't think that there's like any.
I think he's going to make an announcement.
I say it every week. I just don't think that there's any like suspicion.
Drama.
Like, where did the suspicion that he was going to go somewhere come from?
Like, you just want to see someone
say,
why?
It's because he didn't answer it.
Yeah,
multiple times. He's had
Justin Broyles announced he was going to the NFL. Everybody announces everything.
We wish him the best.
Yes, we do, but I'm just saying.
Should be celebrated.
That's the only reason is because he had a chance after Tech, and when he said it was too fresh, he had a chance going into the bowl game.
Yeah.
And he said, like, that's not what I'm focused on. It's like, okay, you figured a day or two after the bowl game, boom, I'm coming back.
I think he's just playing the dance with everybody. I think he likes toying with everybody, and I kind of appreciate it.
I mean, he's been fired up about every transfer that's had an offer or made a visit or committed.
He's the starting quarterback at Oklahoma. He's not going anywhere.
Doesn't sound like it. And when you look at OU's lack of any sort of movement in the portal with a quarterback, I mean, all signs point toward it. I think you just want to hear him say it.
Guys, is there a possibility that he's not saying it because he's planning to be here in the spring and then see where things go?
I just don't think I mean, from a hypothetically, if that were to happen, like that would be a terrible position to put himself in, wouldn't it? Because there's most of the spots are already taken. Sure. I don't know. I think it's kind of a big to do about nothing right now.
It's just when he made that announcement about his brand, like right after the season.
I think that there's part of that too. Like he's just
so you're like building
it up. They're building something up.
Yeah, he's okay with announcing stuff. Okay, go ahead and announce it.
And let's face it. I mean, we're 90 miles away from the biggest disaster going on in college football right now at Oklahoma State. Like, everybody's just a little freaked out about everything right now when it comes to the transfer portal. I mean, if you know an Oklahoma State fan right now, they are shitting bricks. I mean, it is unbelievable right now what's going on with that fan base.
That's a little bit of self-inflicted.
Go talk with your Oklahoma State friend. Like they need somebody to talk to.
One of the great places in all of the country is the barn. You can go get 6-pack or 12-packs that are split in half, 24-packs even. It's one of the great experiences buying beer underage.
Guys, I mean, but this was really hard to foresee, especially if you choose to pay no attention to the transfer portal. That makes it really difficult to understand that half your team's going to leave.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of self-inflicted wounds there that they need to cover up because the head coach is a little arrogant. That's kind of
and I don't think anything's going to change. You're not going to nothing's going to change.
Well, when Todd Monken takes over after the national championship game, changes. They might be in Stillwater.
Can you imagine if
that'd be wild?
If Chad Weiberg and Dr. Strum lead a revolt and just get rid of him?
I don't know about a revolt, but I have heard that there is somewhat of a internal investigation into why they've lost an entire position unit. Like I have heard that.
Yeah, I mean,
they're not happy about the situation that everybody's talking about Oklahoma State football right now.
And you've got people defending Mike, like, oh, these kids aren't, they weren't all that great anyway. It's like, but you can't turn over an entire position group, no matter whether they were All-Americans or not. You just can't. You can't survive doing that.
You also can't just act like the transfer portal isn't a thing. Like, just completely.
Well, it's weird because he embraces bringing people in. Because remember, that was the December storyline.
They're signing lots of
they are
transfers.
killing it in the transfer portal. But the other side, it's like that doesn't exist.
But we all know if you're talking about players that you're developing versus players that are coming in on the transfer portal, it's not apples to oranges. I mean, it is apples to oranges. It's not apples to apples. Like, you're not going to build a team. A championship team through the transfer portal. You're just not like SMU did a really nice job of doing it. Texas State did a really nice job, but there's a certain level that you can reach with the transfer portal. And I guess Lincoln Riley's pretty much. I mean, he did as well as anybody could do, and he looked like the exact same Lincoln Riley that was at Oklahoma the last 4 years.
It's just
he just built Oklahoma really fast.
Brings a smile
on the West Coast. Yeah,
we can get to that here in a little bit because that was so much fun. Watching the way that Cotton Bowl ended in the final 5.5 minutes.
Sticking with it at 45-30, I felt vindicated.
For the first time, it was like all those hours that we spent listening to USC games on the way back from road trips. It finally paid off. It finally turned into what I thought it was going to be.
Well, What's funny to me is the people, and to kind of digress into where we were just a second ago, and we can move forward after that, but the same people that will tell you, oh, the transfer portal, you can't build teams that way, blah, 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 are the same people that are now trying to say, it's no big deal that the entire receiver room's leaving. No, you can't have that shit both ways. Like, you can't replace an entire position group in one season and it be okay, and the transfer portal's not how you build a team. Like that.
Well, let's just say you can't do both. I mean, you might be able to build a position group through the transfer portal. You might be able to overcome some losses, but you can't do both at the same time.
No.
It's just...
But at least they'll have their quarterback. Whoa, wait.
They're just some serious, just like, when you lose that many people or when you've lost that many contributors and like a J.P. Richardson or somebody that was literally a captain for the bowl game and you're losing foundational members of the program, it would be like incompetent to not wonder what the hell's going on behind the scenes, why people are wanting to get out.
Because you should be done at this point. You're a week removed from the bowl game. There should be no more surprises. Like, we haven't seen anyone from OU like, oh, man, I get the bowl prep and everything. Now that dude's really not happy. You saw who you knew were going to leave in the couple of weeks of December leading up. That's not a surprise. At this point, anyone that leaves, because there's still two more weeks of the window being open, that would be a surprise, though, because you should know at this point who you feel confident is coming back for spring.
I have some thoughts on that. First off, I want to remind you guys, I want to tell you guys something. Prime Shrimp, our great sponsors, they've got an updated look for 2023. I know a lot of you guys have ordered Prime Shrimp here on the site, and you're used to, when you have ordered in the past, you've gotten 2 frozen packets of your favorite shrimp. Now they're kind of catering things toward retail a little bit more. They're growing bigger. So now you just have 1 vacuum pouch instead of 2, and the price is cheaper as well. So, and that's where this comes in really good for scoopers. So you can get all the different combinations, the brand new New Orleans style barbecue. You can get the lemon pepper or lemon crack pepper shrimp. You can get the Louisiana shrimp boil if you want. But it just comes in 1 vacuum pouch. It's about half the price. And so 10 minutes, put it in there just like you were before. But you get these in single serve editions now. So they're changing things up a little bit. All new packaging. Primeshrimp.com. That's PRIME shrimp.com. And here's the thing. It's either $11 or $10 per shrimp signature, sauce that you want to choose. You still get $20 off. So you can literally get a couple packs of shrimp. You don't have to get just the Louisiana shrimp boil. You don't have to get just the French Quarter Alfredo. You can get 1 of each, and they'll pay for it. You just pay for the shipping. So go to primeshrimp.com, use that promo code SoonerScoop, and you get $20 off your first order, which will get you 2 different packages for free. So go check it out. Easier way for you, too, to try all the different flavors and go through that stuff a little bit quicker. So single shrimp, all new packaging coming up in 2023 at primeshrimp.com. And, guys, here's the thing about the transfer portal to me. And this is kind of the genius thing of what Clemson did and what Brent brought to Oklahoma is you have that support staff. You have those people that are a go between the coaching staff and the players. Like it's a support system, if you will. Like Oklahoma State doesn't have that. It sounds like Mike Gundy had the press conference where he said, why should I talk to the players about what they're going to do next year? That's not any of my business. No, that's everybody's business. Like all the old school coaches like the Pat Narduzzi's and the Mike Gundy, every coach is sitting out there going, these guys are vulnerable. We can poach their players. And Lincoln Riley's of the world are sitting out there and more. I mean, you don't think that after this season that TCU is not going to go out there shopping?
I mean, it was pretty. It worked out pretty damn well for them this past year when they brought in 20 transfers, didn't it?
Well, and that's Sonny Dykes when he was at SMU. That's what he did. That's what he did. He's going to keep doing that.
Bring kids back home too, and you can recruit to the DFW area very easily as like a second opportunity.
John Paul Richardson will be a frog here soon.
Exactly, and it might just boil down to communication on the part of one staff, just talking about like where they see you in the program. Like, how hard is that?
And I mean, Oklahoma's already taken Trace Ford. I mean, maybe they take
sure.
Some of the receivers that are coming out. I mean, they certainly need some.
Sure.
They don't have to worry about Kel getting pissed off because he's not there anymore. If I were Mike Gundy, I'd probably hire Kel to help me out with some of this communication stuff because he's had to do that stuff at Oklahoma. Like, he's used to that kind of. And everybody wants to say, like, well, you can't coddle these players. You can't let them run the team. Like, everybody kind of coddles them. Like, you have to coddle parents, you have to coddle trainers. Like, we've all kind of rolled our eyes at that stuff in the past, but that is what college football is now. It's like dealing with the third parties, and we've all lamented it being like, oh, it's the next AAU, but it's here. It's happening. You have to not embrace it, but you have to deal with it.
Hey, in Stillwater, they're more worried about coddling the coaches than they are the players. Like, there's been more, like, there's always been a willingness to be like, well, that guy's not cutting it. That guy's not getting it done. But,
That's like, how dare you ask me about Casey Dunn? I'll revoke your press access.
Exactly. Like, and again, guys, from everything we've heard, it sounds like the core problem here in all of this is adaptability. Adaptability offensively, ability to adapt to what's happening in college football, and the fact that you have to have almost a personnel department at this point in time. Like, you have to accept that that's part of it, or I don't know how you exist in this era of college football.
It is kind of interesting, too, that, I think that there's an element there that, Mike Gundy's not having to answer to a lot of people anymore, like he used to with Mike Holder, like he used to with Boone Pickens.
People that kept him honest.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that like Chad Weiberg or the president, what is it, Schrum?
Casey
Schrum isn't doing that, but I'm sure it's different answering to somebody that you feel like you can kind of walk all over a little bit as opposed to somebody like Boone that
Mike Holder made his life harder than it needed to be.
And he hated it because
he hated him. Yeah,
they went head to head many a time. Before we before we steal Carson Cunningham's Pistols Firing podcast.
Sorry, Carson.
Under Armour wrap-up thoughts, Josh. Obviously really impressed with PJ and what he was able to produce. What about the 6 other guys? Obviously, I think there's going to be a lot of talk about what Jackson Arnold did down there.
Peyton Bowen just needed to get out of there with his life after all the questions about his commitment.
Which he handled very, very well again. Like the Rivals interview was really revealing the almost 10 minutes that he spent talking with us. And then the one that you did with him as well, kind of just detailing everything that he thought about, his decision and the controversy and drama that surrounded that.
I could tell when I walked up to Peyton to do this interview, and it was like, Under Armour usually has a very explicit time, like, okay, at the end of practice, you're going to get 15, 20 minutes, whatever they set aside, and you can interview as many guys as you want to, however you want to, whatever. Well, the 2 days I was there, they kept having these skills challenges at the end, and then at the end of the skills challenge, it was just kind of, if you could find somebody, great. So I was like, screw that. I'm going to do this during the skills challenge. So Peyton's watching some guys, and he's hanging out with a name that is familiar to a lot of OU fans, Ashton Cozart, and and some other guys. Well, Jackson Arnold, of course, and some of the other commitments that are there. Signees. God, I've done this in multiple interviews. It's really hard to work that into my brain now, but and I walk up to him like, Peyton, hey man, would just like to catch up with you a little bit. And I could see it in his face, like he was going to do it, but he was like, oh shit, man, I don't want to do this again. And so I kind of told him, I was like, look, man, he really did. He laid it bare in that Rivals interview. So you were just like, I'm not going to make this difficult for you. But even within what I asked him, and I tried to be, kind of more like, let's look at going forward a little more than just, what the last week or two has been like. But he still kind of went into some of that stuff and talked about, like, I had to make the decision for me. My mom and dad had, I just hoped they were going to be okay with it. And I mean, it was, again, it was very much what we were hearing over the last couple months, where it was mom and dad were in two different directions, and Peyton wanted to go to Oklahoma. And I think, I'm sure there was some feeling among, and I know as a parent myself, like I get into this where it bothers me. Like, it doesn't bother me so much what decision my child makes, but it bothers me if I feel like she's making it because someone else is, giving input, or she's following someone else into something. And I wonder if that was part of the equation. But I thought he was good. What did stand out to me, Peyton Bowen's got a lot of room to go in the weight room. Like he is a very lean guy compared to some of these other safeties out there. I mean, just looking at him next to Jacoby Johnson, Jacoby Johnson's a clearly more physically impressive athlete. Now, what was interesting, and I'll give credit to all the Rivals guys, is I said something, and I'm standing next to like Adam Gorney, the national director, and Adam Friedman, a few of the other guys, and it was just like, we don't care. Like, he's really, really good. Like, I mean, Peyton Bowen is a guy you can tell Rivals National is full send on. Like, they just love him. And he didn't do anything through the week that hurt himself. He didn't scream out at me either. Like, it was just a solid performance. And like I said, I think it was for him, kind of like what you guys were saying. He just got to relax and play football again and not have to deal with all the crap that he's put up with for the last few weeks. You know, we can go into some other guys in a second if you want to, but Jackson Arnold, obviously a lot of debate on the Crimson Corner today. I thought he was up and down. I'm never gonna sugarcoat this stuff. I'm not gonna pretend like, oh, he's the greatest player ever and he did everything right this week. He missed a lot of throws. I thought in the stuff that he knows, the stuff he runs and is comfortable with at Geyer, he was the best quarterback there by miles and miles, and it wasn't even close. Now, the thing you have to remember, there's no Nico Iamaleava there. There's no Dante Moore. There's no Arch Manning. There's no, a lot of the elite guys weren't it either. Malachi Nelson wasn't there. So there was no, he should have been head and shoulders above the guys that were there. And he was. And so that's fine, but that doesn't mean he was awesome. Like, I didn't think he was. I thought he looked maybe a little rusty. I thought the night practice that I saw the very first night, I thought maybe his arm got a little tired. Like, you weren't seeing some of the same zip. And I don't think it's any huge negative. I don't think it's a big deal. Like, you're not always going to be at your best. And I don't take that as any huge thing. I just thought he was, like on a 1 to 10, I thought he was about a 7. Like, it was good. I've seen him be better. So, people that get mad about acknowledging a reality, I don't understand. Like, he was good, not great, and that's okay.
Man, I think if you just look at what he did in the game, I mean, he showed, to me, all I really took away from watching him in the game was, okay, he looks in high school like a guy that can make plays with his feet. He went out there with amongst the most talented players in the country, and he showed that he's still still able to get yards with his feet, evade people, run past people. Like, that, to me, that's the biggest, that's a huge win. So, I mean, I didn't have any issues, just watching him in the game. I thought, like, that's all I wanted to see. I wasn't really concerned about how he did in the drills, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I honestly, Kerry, that was, and again, I want to be very clear. I don't care about the games. I watched bits and pieces of it. I'm not even going to pretend I sat there and watched it diligently.
Well, it usually sucks.
I may go back. And yeah, they're so discombobulated. The rules are nonsense. Like, you can't blitz anybody.
Everything's single coverage.
There's so much that has nothing to do with what real football looks like that it's hard for me to take it seriously. But at the same time, what did stick out to me was on that touchdown drive when he breaks out of the pocket and goes on that big run, you're like, okay, he looks like he can move with these guys. Like, it didn't look like, oh, this is a kid from North Dallas and playing, the Colony and all these other, the Frisco Park. ISD stuff. Like, it was like, oh no, he can run with any of these guys. Like, he's going to be fine. So, what's
just saying, if a kid in Highland Park, I mean, he's going to play against other teams that aren't as good, like Frisco ISD.
Sure. Like, and again, I obviously he plays Allen. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't play anybody. Obviously, Geyer plays a very legitimate schedule. It was just more of, these guys are really good athletes that he hasn't seen 11 of at any point in his career, and none of those guys have. So for him to be there and to look the part and match up physically, man, that's fine. That's just a box to check for me. Like, people are misconstruing me saying, like, oh, he wasn't perfect, as like I'm down on Jackson Arnold. I think Jackson Arnold's very good. I think he's going to be a multi-year starter, might be Oklahoma's next great quarterback. I think I'm worried that OU fans, guys, we were talking about this earlier. I'm a little concerned that OU fans are setting themselves up thinking he is Caleb Williams or he is Kyler Murray or he is, late career Baker Mayfield. Like, man, I tap the brakes a little. Like, I'm just saying Those guys are rare. That's not usually how it goes.
It's almost still, and I think we said this at the time when it was all happening, it's a disservice to how good Kyler Murray was. It's a disservice to Baker Mayfield and how good he was at the end of the year. We're talking about players that were some of the best college football players
Jalen Hurts
to ever
might be
do it.
Jalen Hurts might be a ceiling.
And if that's the case, he's going to be the MVP of the National Football League this year.
Yeah.
Well, if he ever plays again.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts was the weak link in talent over like a 6-year run at Oklahoma at quarterback. Like, that's insane. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And I think people think this is so easy. Like, you just get a talented guy and plug him in, and he's going to be a Heisman winner. I'm like, guys, it doesn't work like that.
Remember Spencer
And he very well
Rattler?
could win a Heisman someday. I don't think that you're saying he won't.
It's not that he can't. It's just that, like, if that is your base level of expectation, in all likelihood, you are going to be disappointed.
The funny thing was, like, watching the other semifinal, it was like, that's the best I've ever seen C.J. Stroud play, like, in a big game. And I was even the announcers were like, wow, this is a really good version of C.J. Stroud. Like, he's been a 2-time Heisman Trophy finalist, and they were watching him on, even the announcers on television were like, this is the best version of him that we've ever seen, like running the ball and, complete pass. And then Marvin Harrison went out of the game, and then he just kind of but anyway, no, but I mean, everybody's graded on the curve.
Georgia second half cover. That's all that matters.
I mean, no, I get it. I mean, I don't think anybody is watching Jackson Arnold saying, oh, he's going to be the next great, he's the next Kyler Murray. He's a big, tall kid that moves well for his size and, really, has a quick release and I think is accurate and throws the ball down the field well.
And it's almost like one of those things where this conversation is going to be misconstrued because at the end of the day, he still is a 5-star quarterback. He still is one of the best high school football players in the country.
But that's not what this is. I mean, if this was easy, like every draft pick would be Aaron Rodgers. You wouldn't have bust. You wouldn't have, question marks. Who's the stupid guy from BYU? The Jets are giving up on
Wilson.
Zach Wilson. Like, that would never happen. But
I'm a friend of the Wilson family, so I can't say much.
I know. So it's just like, man, the whole thing is a crapshoot. I mean, you hope that you get the best player, and everybody that gets their guy, that becomes the guy. It's like, OU fans this year, remember all the tweets every time rivals would tweet out 4-star Jackson Arnold. He's like, he's a 5-star. Like, it's just, you root for your guy once you sign him. And these guys sign so early. I'm sure everybody at USC thinks that Malachi Nelson's going to be just like, Caleb Williams. And he's not going to be. I'm telling you right now, he's not going to be. By the way, I guess he conveniently had surgery before that.
I think he said he wanted to because he wanted to go through spring.
Well, yeah,
he's going to USC this
right.
year.
He said he actually could have had it during his high school season, but he decided not to, because he wanted to play.
Which is cool. That's fine.
Come on,
might as well do it now instead of.
But
I ate tacos with him. I drink cervezas in the backyard.
Another friend of the Radosovics.
Fight on.
The thing with Nel is he won't be criticized or he won't fall in any rankings for being injured, but Jackson Arnold for showing up could, and that always ruffles people's feathers because that makes no sense.
I think it would be a little bit out of control to bump a guy down because he had 3 bad days of practice with guys he doesn't even know.
Agreed. And again, I get for all the people on the board that I have been arguing with all morning. I got literally broken out of my argument with OU fans on the board by my cleaning lady showing up. And I was like, I got shit to do. I got to get out of the house. So that stopped for a while. But the thing,
why did you say cleaning lady? What's her name?
What's that?
What's a cleaning lady's name?
Yesenia is her name.
Oh my God.
That's why I say cleaning lady.
Wow.
So it's easier because that's a name.
Do you send Linda do you send her Christmas cards still?
No, Linda just walked out on us. She just left me high and dry. I don't know what I did. It's a whole thing.
Linda was when you moved over to League City. She was still doing your house.
Mm-hmm. I mean, now the entire world knows where I live, which is concerning to me. You know, I've kept it kind of a secret, but this is the first outing of League City. Give out my phone number.
But I mean, Lord, nobody's going to find you in your gated community.
But no, no, like she claimed an injury, and we're like, okay, like she told us she broke her hand or something, and we're like, okay, and so she goes, I need X amount of weeks off, and we're like, fine, no problem, and then she literally just never came back.
How'd you break her hand? Protecting herself?
She took a swing at me, you know, that's all. You know, I ducked it, you know.
Trying to be the next national soccer coach? Is that what's going on?
Oh man, yeah, that's
the Rania family sounds like they would have been fun for the recruiting process.
Oh God,
yeah, that and the thing
Claudio.
that's just so crazy about that is they're old friends. Like Berhalter and Rania go way back.
So good.
So for them to be like, you didn't play our son, okay, we're playing this card. Holy crap!
It's maybe outside of, I said this morning on radio, outside of taking a gun to a public area, it's the most American story that you could possibly get.
I mean, I don't know. And it makes you wonder, like, if he doesn't make those comments that he thought were private, like, does this even happen? Like, you wonder how far they had been pushed to feel like, okay, now we feel comfortable doing this. It's beautiful. But anyway, we've done a pistols firing pod. We've done a soccer pod. Let's not devolve too far.
What about some of the guys maybe we don't talk? You know, obviously we talk about PJ, we talk about Jackson. What
Lewis
about
Carter,
the Lewis Carter, even a Jacoby Johnson and what his performance was in Orlando, and maybe even Jaquez Petaway. Like those are three guys that were down there, but I feel like I didn't really hear a whole lot about this week.
Yeah. You know, just to kind of make sure we don't miss anybody. Caden Green, again, I thought he had a really good week. Was a lot more physical than I thought. He worked at left tackle. He worked at left guard. I asked him in the interview, I said, hey, you know, with Jacob Sexton going down, obviously Anton Harrison leaving, has it come up like that, you know, you might be the left tackle on day one? And he kind of, you know, oh, no, nothing like that. And I mean, we can get into some of the portal guys that Oklahoma's had on campus, and that's one that's there currently and one that was there yesterday. They're looking to beef up that offensive line through the portal as well. But Caden, I've said it before, I think he can be like a Drew Samia as a tackle, like a good solid tackle. Nothing wrong with that. Can play good ball. You can win with him. And he's ready enough physically. Like he's very strong. He's stronger than I anticipated. I don't think there's there's no reason he couldn't play next year if they needed him to. That would be my thinking. But as a guard, that's like a Davin Joseph type guard. Like he could be special in that role. So, and very much like that, like Davin was a good tackle, but not a great one, but he was an outstanding guard. So that's kind of what I would say. As far as some of the others, Lewis Carter, I love that
good
guy.
In the game.
I just love him.
Yep.
I mean, and you talk about a dude that, like, Lewis is one of the nicest kids you'd ever want to talk to, but like you just look at his build and his frame, you're like, I ain't messing with that dude. Like, I mean, that's a bad looking dude. And really, chasing down backs, looking at him going through angles, like he sees stuff faster than most linebackers do. I'm sure that's why Brent loves him. He's just so instinctive. And like even in drills, like, I mean, again, where, you know, they kind of know what they're doing, he's just a half step quicker than everybody else. Like he just really has a good feel for it. And I think is a guy that, you know, we talk about, oh, what's Cheetah? To me, he feels like a tailor-made Cheetah. Like that's what it looks like to me. You know, that kind of aggressive downhill player. I've compared him to Ante Jones. He's bigger, probably not quite as fast, but I think that same sort of just 100 miles an hour all the time mentality. With Jaquez Petaway, I've said for a long time that his hands don't get their credit. I heard that from more people this week where it was just like, man, he really catches the ball well, and he does. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about outs, if you're talking about over the shoulder, you're talking about crossing routes. He really is good with his hands. And to me, I mean, if he can come in, if he can grasp the offense, I don't see any way he's not a part of things. Like, he's just too talented. His speed is just game changing. I see him making an impact. There's Jacoby Johnson, who for those that don't know, didn't follow it on the board. He didn't take part in the first practice, the night practice. I was there, came back, and it wasn't his fault. He arrived late. His plane got delayed. And, Bob, Eddie, I'm sure you guys can empathize. And so he arrived a little late, didn't have his shoulder pads in time for practice. So he sat out that first night, but he went through it. I thought he was kind of okay. Again, kind of like you could tell how raw he was. You could tell it was a big jump in not only talent, which every guy's going through, but Jacoby, guys, you've seen more of his games than I have. He's never challenged. No one goes to him. And so for him to have a guy like Jackson Arnold throwing to Jaquez Petaway, running vertical down the field, that's a challenge. That's something he's not seen before. And I thought it took him a little while to adapt, but I actually had Woody Womack, one of our national guys. I ran into him at Army yesterday, and he walks up to me and goes, who really had a nice game was Jacoby Johnson. Had a few breakups, like really looked like it started to slow down for him a little bit. And it makes me want to go back and watch it a little bit, because that's the stuff I've just not seen. Like, it's one of those things where I can't grade it about Jacoby because I don't know. It's not on tape. It doesn't exist. Because, like I said, he's 6'2" and can run for days. No one in Oklahoma's throwing within half a mile of him, because why the hell would you?
Yeah, watch the end of the never mind. There's something I've been waiting to show Eddie.
You want to switch over to the All-American?
Before we do that, I want to say Happy New Year, everybody. I keep waiting for this play to happen. Happy New Year. Dead Soxy is here to help you step into the new year in style. If you haven't already made the move, as Eddie and Josh and I and Bob even, you really need to experience the difference a quality sock can make. Go to deadsoxy.com, enter the code SCOOP at checkout, and you'll receive 25% off all orders, including sale items. And look, as Dead Soxy continues to grow, they want to extend a special thank you for the continued support of the Sooner Scoop community. You guys have been awesome. The folks at Dead Soxy constantly striving to perform to improve their quality, relationships, and customer experiences. Remember to enter that promo code SCOOP at checkout for 25% off all orders, and Happy New Year from Dead Soxy. And always stay Soxy. Here's watch Larry Nafee on the sideline right here. He loses his mind. Right there he is.
Where?
Right in the corner. I see right in the corner. Right. He's losing his mind.
Why was he so mad?
I don't know. It was right before half. Because Javonte Barnes ran out of bounds.
Right.
They're saying he ran him too far out of bounds.
Oh, he wanted. That's when they were short on the 4th and 1.
Yeah.
He
didn't get the first.
You're saying he came out right
and
there.
And he didn't, though. He stepped out first.
The wolf. What if he would have just attacked somebody? That would have been great.
That was. I was trying to get your attention when that came on earlier. And
that's
I
good.
Never saw that until just now. This is the third time I'm rewatching this, so catching a lot of stuff. So as you said, Bob, go ahead and take over, because I'm sorry I stopped.
Let's go to San Antonio.
San Antonio, not as many people. Maybe just a one day. That's kind of hard for you to kind of encapsulate everything with those three guys. But just kind of take us through what you saw yesterday.
He did it.
He muted himself. He finally did it.
Damn it! And I had such a snarky ass response. Shit. I said I'm gonna get to hit Bob with a wood if you care, because there are 4 guys in San Antonio, not 3. But damn it. All right. Well, that was my moment of stupidity. Hopefully there's just one in this podcast. Anyway. Again, for those that don't know, Samuel Omasigo, the Rivals 250 linebacker commitments there, kid out of kind of Central Texas. Josiah Wagner, who I'd seen in the year from the Seattle area. You got Joshua Bates, the offensive lineman from Durango, the longest standing commitment. And we talked about, how many times he's been asked about that, and that story's been written, and he was – I don't think he was brokenhearted to now be a signee, so he didn't really have to do that story anymore. But and then the final piece was, and I gave Bob crap, and now I'm going to forget who Makari Vickers, the only.
I thought Bates was hurt. I guess. Is how...
And he, like, I saw him for like 5 snaps in the morning, and he finished the morning session. And then as we talked in between, he was like, yeah, I just kind of re-aggravated something little. I'm just going to sit out the afternoon. I'm like, cool. The one practice I'm here for, he's like one of the few guys in the class remaining I haven't seen, and I didn't get to see him. So, but, you know, a guy, I mean, he's a center all day. I mean, Josh is not going to and he even, you know, we joked about it during the interview, is he, you know, kind of acknowledged, I'm not the biggest guy here. I'm not the most physically impressive guy here. He's going to have to trim up, you know, change his body a little bit, but he didn't have any illusions. Like, he was like, I'm going to come in. I want to learn from Andrew. I've talked to Robert Congal a lot, like Congal. Like, I've had these conversations, and he knows, he's like, I just got to go in there and learn. He's like, I just want to soak everything up, learn everything I can learn. So he's a center, man. He gets it. He knows what he is. He knows what he's not. And I think he's going to be a really good one. I think it's just going to need some time to get there and to develop. And, you know, in a couple years, he's probably ready to be a starter, and probably a pretty good one. So I like, again, as much as anything that I got to, you know, take in yesterday from Josh Bates, it was just his maturity. I mean, he just really understands what his role in this thing is. With Josiah Wagner, again, what I love is that he's just going to fight with anybody. And I don't mean like physically, like he wants to mix it up. He wants to make it ugly. Like, he's going to get in there and just try to annoy you. He's the DB every receiver hates, because he's going to stay in your ear. He's going to stay right there on your hip, hand fighting with you, doing every little dirty trick he can come up with to keep you away from the ball. And I just love his mentality. Like, he just is a guy that is going to fight and scrap for every inch. It's not hard to figure out why Brent Venables loves him, because he is Josiah's a talented kid, but he's about 5'10", 170 pounds, and he's going to Oklahoma. Like, he's an overachiever. Like, he maximizes everything he's got. And I like that a lot. And and I asked him, I said, what do you see yourself kind of as at Oklahoma? And he goes kind of like that nickel cheetah role. And I know, again, they're going to have a 17 deep at cheetah, but it is kind of like, like goes back to like the Brandon Shelby type of guy where, early days of Brent using this kind of position where it was kind of flexible. And I think it'll depend on who they're playing and what they're throwing at them offensively to, do you see a guy like Josiah Wagner out there? Because he screams nickelback to me.
Right.
Like, he has that right kind of mentality, the right size. Like, he's willing to throw his head in there and get involved at, at the line of scrimmage. Like, he's just not shy. So I like him a lot. Samuel Omasigo, another guy that I'd had a chance to see during the season, he just keeps getting bigger. I don't want to lay this at his feet because it's unfair, but physically the development, there's Kenneth Murray vibes there. Like, every time I see him, he's got like 5 more pounds of muscle, and you're like, what are you doing, man? But he looks great. I mean, and he's 6'2", probably 215, can just fly. He runs everywhere. Like I said, plenty of times plays receiver for Crandall and is a good one. He's starting to figure it out. You're starting to see him not get like wrong arm. Like, he'll keep the outside leverage. He'll do the little things where you're like, and not every time, but you're starting to see that light coming on. It's all clicking for him a little bit. And again, there's a million things that even I don't know that he's going to learn, but it's impressive to watch him go. But the guy that I hadn't seen before, was so excited, Makari Vickers. I think we've got him 120 in the country, and I don't think that's high enough. I think that's a really, really good player. He is super smooth, really athletic. But guys, we've talked about it before. Like, when OU will get into these big bowl games, the playoff games, and they would face these Alabama or Georgia corners that are going to physical you up, and they're going to put their hands on you. And every single play you could probably call pass interference, but they know the referee's not going to do it. That's how Makari Vickers plays. Like, he's running guys out of bounds. There's no limit to how far he'll go. And he's going to get flagged some. People need to just get their head around that. But he is that physical corner that is going to disrupt receivers as often as not.
Did you go to the Alamo?
Awesome.
I mean, the dome, yeah, which is just continues to be just a bastion of great football watching. And I still will say the best press box I've ever been in as far as location in a stadium.
It really is like a great place to watch a football game. I don't know about practice and stuff like that, but I love the Alamo Dome and how it's set up.
Yep.
If it didn't have just weird lighting, it would be like almost the perfect football.
See, and I kind of like the lighting from just a video standpoint.
From taking photos, it's not great because you want to stop action a little bit more than the lighting will allow.
What, just from a national perspective, I know that I've seen videos from Brandon Ennis down there, and it looks like he's tearing it up. Anybody stick out to you that you thought, damn, I wasn't expecting to see that, I guess?
Well, I touched earlier on Keon Keeley kind of being like, I kind of thought like, oh, he's going to Alabama, he's going to be great. Like he is a boomer bust guy to me. Like if he will buy into what Alabama's selling, he is an absolute freak of nature. Like, I mean, just a wildly talented guy. At the same time, like every time I saw somebody kind of come at him and push him a little bit, I don't know if he was always interested in that.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. Caden Proctor, oh my God. Like that's a second-year NFL left tackle, right? Like his build is insane. I've rarely seen a guy like that. I've seen good young offensive linemen, but I mean, he looks like a guy physically. Now, again, he's like anybody. He's got a lot of work to do as a technician, but just like his physical makeup is unbelievable. And when you can sit, like I saw Samson Okunlola this week, I saw a lot of the top tackles. It's not even the same sport. Like Samson Okunlola is like a 6'4", almost guard looking guy. And then you've got Caden Proctor, who's every bit of 6'6", and like you can see the like muscles in his calves when he walks. Like he's freaky, like just an unusual type of dude. I will say, and as a guy that went to both games, the roster at Under Armour, just like the physical appearance, miles better. Mm-hmm. There's just no question. Like it looked like a much more impressive group. And I guess one of the guys that, a lot of people were buzzing about, and it's not like a big surprise, he's a very highly ranked guy. Justice Haynes has been a guy that I was kind of up and down. I didn't love his tape as much as where he's currently ranked, but seeing him up close, he's pretty damn good, man. The guy going to Alabama. I mean, again, Keon Keeley, Caden Proctor, Justice Haynes, all three going to Alabama. I'm really stepping out on limbs here, but there are some dudes. It's going to be interesting because this was a really pretty solid class. You hear nationally that next year is a little shakier. Like I know in Texas it's not as good a year as it has been the last few years, and nationally I don't hear the same buzz about some of the guys like you have over the last couple of years. And that's pretty normal. It seems like every fourth or fifth year you kind of hit a class. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of good players, but it's not the same elite, like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of freaks.
Want to go to the portal now?
Yeah, we can go to portal, or we can go. Josh, we're watching the Cheez-It Bowl game. If you have any thoughts, just recapping the end of the
we didn't get a chance
season
to break that
from
down
the bowl
with
game. Bob, if you have anything to add, I'm sure that.
Oh, I got laughed at for saying it was a good performance on the message board for 3 pages. So
well, them.
I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Like. That's people that think any loss is bad. Like, I mean, there has to be some ability to recognize nuance. Like, arguably your 4 best players, and to go toe-to-toe with a good, and again, I said before the game, I didn't think Florida State was special, so I'm not going to make that Florida State team into something they're not, but that's a good football team, and OU fought them tooth and nail in from what you guys tell me was basically a friggin' home game.
Oh, yeah. Ridiculous.
It might have been like better than a home game. I don't know. There were so many Florida State fans.
Like at least 80-20. Yeah. At least.
Oh, and that's being very conservative about it. I mean, it was probably closer to 85-15.
Yeah, and I said this on the pod with Eddie after, like, I will never make anyone handle the Twitter account on game day besides myself. Like, I would never make anybody in like Bob or Eddie or anybody in the future that we hire. Like, it's too much. It's insanity, and people get so. I just feel like the fan base right now, like, you need to just tone it back a little bit. I mean, it's just. I look at it out there, and I'm online all the time.
Get crazier. They're getting SEC ready.
They're crazy.
We got Danny Okoye talking about nudes in his DMs. Like, I'm a little concerned.
There's a difference in just being a whack job tantrum thrower versus being someone that is passionate about OU football.
That's fair.
And what I'm saying is the balance is getting skewed here because we're getting too many just whack job OU fans that can't can't, just like you said, like, this is a fun game to watch. They lost it. I understand that.
It was a great game.
It was a really good college football game. Like, there's some positives to come out of this. You have to be able to embrace that kind of stuff as a fan, or else you're just going to be a miserable fucking human being. And no one wants to be around a miserable fucking human being. So, embrace some of the good. And the fact that they're able to take 4 offensive linemen that never started together before, and yes, they did screw up at some key moments, but you knew that was going to, or if you didn't know that was going to happen.
That's why they're 6-6.
Yeah, if you didn't know that was going to happen, then you just are an unrealistic bastard. So it's just like, stop making everyone crazy and just embrace some of the positives. Not everything has to be a diatribe and you grading, an axe or grinding an axe against everything OU football. Like, there's some good things that have happened this year. It's not all great. It's 6-7. I understand that. It's not 1980s John Blake all over again. No, it's not. We've said that 100 times. Like, look, this game, I've watched it 3 times now. It doesn't make me shy away. They lost a football game on a field goal at the end of the game. And I can live with that because I think you see this recruiting class, everything we've talked about today, there's a lot of positives going on right now. So,
I mean, you look at Savion Byrd, Gavin Sawchuk. Like, you saw things from the guys that you think can be real players in 2023 and beyond, and that's what you were looking to try to find.
I never would have given Aaron Parks a chance to go out there and not feel like a guy that needed to be pulled from the game halfway through. And yeah, I mean, he was another guy that had mistakes, but still, I mean, you saw a lot of good stuff out there. And I saw, Danny Stutzman wasn't perfect, but he did a lot of good things. David Igwebu's gotten better. I mean, he's not perfect, but he's gotten better. And we'll see what happens. But, I mean, I think with what they're adding to it, like a PJ Adebawore, like, that's a guy that could come in immediately, and he might not play every snap, but he's going to make you better and more athletic and more dangerous on defense.
At the end of the day, are they adding bodies, and we'll get to it in the portal discussion, are they adding bodies that are going to contribute and help make the product better? Absolutely, yes. Like, every guy that they've brought in so far is somebody that you would think is going to have some type of piece on the 2023 team, specifically talking about the portal guys. Obviously, some of the elite guys in the 2023 class are going to step in and play immediately and help add depth. You have to love what you saw out of Savion Byrd, though, Josh.
He's going to be reined in, I think. He's going to personal foul penalty.
It's better to bring somebody back than it is the other way around and try to make him go crazy.
But he and Guyton together, I mean,
there's a lot
a lot of promise.
But again,
and Andrew Rame's going to come back, and then that's going to give you a chance to go back and forth. Or
you want to put they add somebody like a Matt Lee who's visiting from Central Florida.
And then you let Rame be a guard. And
right.
One of the Central Florida, Matt Murchell, who covers Central Florida as well, also added, he wrote for the Orlando Sentinel, that Matt Lee was one of the several former teammates to reach out to support Dillon Gabriel when he decided to transfer. So there's definitely a talking about like the tweets from earlier that we started the program with, that they are very close, it seems like.
Guys, I have posted something on the board kind of while we were, early in the pod here, but so I don't have to worry about, like, I didn't get it out before it's on the board. But I have talked to a few people that sounds like this came together pretty quickly, like last 24 or 48 hours.
He went in 2 days ago.
Yeah, and so I don't know that. Like I said, I don't know that this was necessarily like one of the direct plans, but obviously very good player. Someone was telling me, and I haven't looked to verify if it's true, that he was like the third-ranked center according to PFF this year or something like that. So a good player. And from what I can gather, it sounds like they want to size him up a little bit and just see what he can do. And that may pertain to, could he play center and Rain moves to guard, or vice versa, whatever, however they're going to look at that. So, but again, from what I also gathered, and it's not like you're having to read a lot here. Sure sounds like Oklahoma would be in very good shape if they want to really pursue him.
He's, just for, I guess, perspective, he's number one right now in the athletics portal offensive line available.
Nice.
Which is funny because you would think it'd be a tackle. So for it to be a center is definitely a little different.
Well, and speaking of tackle, they brought in Walter Rouse yesterday, the left tackle from Stanford. Guy has 39 career starts at left tackle for Stanford. And you can say whatever you want. If Stanford's done anything right in the last few years, they still have decent offensive linemen. They're still playing decent football on the line of scrimmage. So, and I would think the way they have played would lend itself pretty well to Bill Bedenbaugh and his style. So I haven't heard a lot about how that went, but I do think Oklahoma's got to be thought of as a contender there because, look, man, we don't have anybody at left tackle with any experience. Like, you could come in and win this job.
It's OU, Iowa, and the Huskers, and I know Nebraska is going to go as all out as they can this weekend when they bring him in.
Good schools to be joining when you're talking about offensive linemen, it seems like.
Yep.
Yeah, but we'll keep you updated on portal movement. Bob's got a story right now on the homepage, and it will include Matt Lee here shortly as well. But we'll keep you up to date on what's going on with players coming in, coming out, who OU is getting interested in, who they might still be out there for the Sooners to land in the transfer portal. So all that stuff, go check it out on Soonerscoop.com.
And it's just weird because the Bowling Green receiver, OU offers them, and he got like 10 offers the first day he hit the portal. So it's so hard to sort of gauge where the mutual interest is going to be. You need stuff like him saying he's in Norman to really let you know that this is an offer that you need to pay attention to, because just like with Matt Lee, this transfer portal recruiting, that happens so quickly. And there's this 5-day window from Wednesday through Sunday for the mid-year transfers to make as many visits as possible. And that's why you're seeing these things come together as fast as they are during the last couple days.
All right. Outside of that, I think, Under Armour All-American transfer portal, pretty good. I would say
everything was going so well until we got to this point.
Until we got to basketball.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And going on the road, being 0-2 and now going to Lubbock and Lawrence in the next week.
There's just going to be a big beep.
Join
right
my
there.
movement, OU fans. Join the movement.
It's just a big beep. I mean, nobody knows what you're talking about.
That's fine. I talked about it for 4 hours this morning. If we don't want to talk about it, that is completely okay.
No, I mean, starting out 0-2 in conference at home is awful. I mean, that's awful. That's a death blow.
They're just they're not a very good basketball team right now. Like Todd and I talked about this morning, Bob. It's when have they beat a good basketball team late? They haven't in a year and a half.
Yeah,
they haven't done it. Like the last time that they beat a good basketball team in a close game was with Lon Kruger as the coach.
And I think what surprised everyone, and myself included, about Wednesday night is you start to count on things. You start counting on Grant Sherfield getting between 15 to 20 points running the team. And here he's got 4 points. He's got a turnover. He's in foul trouble. He looks like he's totally lost. He looks like he's tired from all the usage rate that he had throughout the first 2 months of the season. And you're trying to figure out on the fly how to win a very important conference game when your star player is just missing in action.
It was the very first time, too, that he was visibly frustrated with not being able to get anything going offensively.
But he couldn't get off a shot. I mean, Iowa State was just all over him.
I know one way not to get a shot off is dribbling the ball into the corner and getting trapped.
Yeah.
And using the sideline as the third defender. Like,
They lost a timeout because of it.
It's just incredible to me that I guess the lack of IQ with this basketball team. Tanner Groves is what he is. I don't think he's a very good basketball player.
I said this to you guys yesterday. Like, I'm sitting there watching, and Bijan Cortez is in the game, and he's diving towards the basket, and Tanner Groves is diving with him, and like you see lanes there that he's rolling with him, and he just doesn't hit it. I mean, he
trusts God. He trusts Godwin to catch it, where Tanner Groves has not shown the ability to consistently catch that type of pass.
But, I mean, why are you running that set if you're not going to pass it through an open lane? Like, at least throw it to him and let him fumble it around and then just go back to Porter and say, I can't do anything with this guy.
They have a very...
No, that last shot last night was just,
And that's because they didn't have the timeout because of all the stuff that had happened in the previous couple minutes. They weren't able to get a real play designed. That's what happened last year.
And then you get
against Texas.
I mean, you get the non-call on the foul where it goes out of bounds.
Yeah.
And then you get the ball back and you waste it.
That's what he's talking about. Like they didn't have a timeout, so they drew a shit play up to begin with.
You have Bijan trying to get it to Jalen.
Jalen in traffic.
They were trying to get Sherfield coming off of a screen, and he got
blocked
up.
That was the second option. The first option was Jalen. The second option was going to be Grant, and they felt confident that Bijan could try to make that pass.
Iowa State just
a
played
little
harder.
Too hot.
Iowa State just played harder. They stuck on their man. I mean, they couldn't get open. They just weren't. There wasn't enough. Desperation when they needed it.
And the problem is that now you've lost 2 home games in a league where it's going to be tough to win on the road. So even if
you got to go to Lubbock. Congratulations.
Even if you
who's in the same spot? Who's in the exact same spot now?
Sure. Even if you are able to go 7-2 at home, like what road game are you going to win to get one back? You can't win one to get one back. You're not going to Lawrence. You're not going to Lubbock probably to win.
Doesn't look like Kansas State's going to be an option this season.
No, it's about as poor of a start as you could possibly imagine, and a lot of it is self-induced or self-inflicted in a way that I didn't think that Iowa State they played well defensively. They didn't play good last night offensively.
No,
you kind of got lucky in that regard, and you weren't able to win that game late.
I mean, they used so much energy to make 25-7 turn into 27-25.
And they were behind. They were playing from behind the entire game.
The entire second half.
That start was offensive.
Yes.
Just straight up, some of the worst 8 minutes of basketball I've seen an Oklahoma team play. Uninspired, not really just shitting on themselves. It was just kind of, who gives a shit?
Yes. It was like they didn't care about being out there initially,
which is
it
concerning.
Took CJ Nolan and Bijan to come in and provide the spark, and the rest of the team followed suit. But yeah, they never really were in control in the second half. It was just, but they were never out of it. Never more than 2 or 3 possessions down, but just never felt like they were about to take a stranglehold. And when you got to that final media timeout, turn to Eli, the Tulsa World, to go, there isn't one person in here that believes OU is going to win this game.
No, it's just so foul. I couldn't be more down right now on the OU basketball program. And even with that said, they're still top 45 in net. That's the thing, though, is the Big 12 is so good.
But you're going to have to win some.
You're going to cut some people out that are probably deserving of being in the tournament, though. I mean,
well, eventually it's going to be like last year where West Virginia worked itself out of the picture. It's like they were top 40, 50, and it's like eventually you have to win. You can't keep coming close, then you end up in the 70s, and that's OU. That's the trajectory it's on.
And by the way, your non-conference game that you still got out there is against another top 17 in Alabama. Yeah. So, and we're not even gonna do the Lloyd Noble Center atmosphere. I don't even want to talk about it because it was so bad.
But you sort of knew it would be.
Not that bad, though. Not that bad.
Couldn't be brainwashed by what Saturday was with Texas and think it was ever going to be like that during the winter break for a 6 p.m. tip after you lose a game like that.
It would be if they were good or if they had a better arena, but oh well.
By the way, what does it mean with Team Griffin buying up
buddies?
I don't know.
It's a fun AAU story that I know nothing about, but it is so
weird.
I read it and I was like, oh, I didn't know that AAU programs did that.
I guess that's what Taylor's doing, though. He runs the Griffin basketball
empire.
Yeah, it is an empire now that they bought Buddy.
I mean, it's probably tough to maintain. It's like a great idea in theory. Like, we'll see how long Team Trae Young lasts. Like, it sounds like, it's something I really want to do. And then you realize how difficult it is to do on a year-to-year basis. And
I want to see some, like, AAU wars, like street wars.
Like in Anchorman?
Yeah. Exactly like in Anchorman.
All right, Josh, we're done. Basketball grievances have been filed.
Did they lose? Are they not doing well?
They are not.
I mean, OU or Texas Tech will be 0-3 after Saturday night.
And OU may never play on
who you bet
regular
on
cable
that
TV
argument,
again.
Bob?
It seems be all ESPN Plus.
It seems closer to 3-15 than it does 10-8.
Bingo.
We'll say that. We'll say that. And it's also like one of those things too that it just like the style of play. Like if you're gonna play in these close games and you're gonna try to run sets and try to possess the basketball and have really good possessions, you better score and execute. And it's just so far from that. I don't know.
I'm bringing Joe Bamasil back to the talk when we meet with Porter tomorrow. Because if
didn't even play.
You're not athletic enough. Your most athletic player is sitting on the bench.
I don't understand that either. But
see what it says.
All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back again next week. Probably a lot more transfer portal activity to report on, and we'll see what happens there and on the recruiting trail as well, and basketball.
Unless they win in Lubbock and Lawrence, and then we're going to anoint them as the next Final Four champions.
They don't deserve an emergency pod yet.
Not yet.
Well, no. I mean, you could look at 0-4 going into West Virginia.
We'll allow Josh tweet about it.
West Virginia at home at 11 o'clock next Saturday. That's what you could be looking at.
No.
No.
No. I don't think I want that either.
We'll get to a point where I'm just going to be like, do you want us to cover this shit?
TCU's playing in a national championship.
I can't wait for Monday.
I need Kendra Miller to be healthy.
I know.
They're not going to do it without Kendra.
I wouldn't say that, but
they're not going to do it. Period.
Okay.
This team might
stop.
It is unbelievable, though. I mean, they kind of beat the shit out of Michigan on Saturday.
Look, Georgia's secondary is not a bunch of world beaters,
and they got Darius Davis.
They made him look like,
and Quentin Johnson got held. That's what I kept saying. That team was beat up. They had an early bye week.
If Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't get hurt, I think Georgia loses that game.
I think they do too.
They do. Because Marvin Harrison Jr. is an NFL guy. So is half of Ohio State's wide receiver room. TCU has one dude that's scary.
But he's
Darius
scary.
Davis is a good player.
Tay Barber's a good player.
Keely Ringo enough, it'll be fine.
I get and that's the thing.
The Georgia player
gets measured against Georgia. Yes. Like Keely Ringo's not great or didn't have a great game by Georgia defensive standards because Georgia's defensive standards are absurd.
But he gets picked
McCarthy
on though.
Ran all over this TCU defense.
But he does get picked on. They go after him a lot. People go after Keely.
Yeah, because he's super aggressive. Like he'll make big plays and then he'll make bad ones too. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best receiver in the country. Like getting beat by him, I don't know why. I feel like people are just setting themselves up for a huge disappointment here. Like
you're really painting yourself into a corner right here.
I'm fine with it.
I think the game's going to be closer.
Is so much better up front than TCU, than anything TCU has seen.
I think the game will be closer than 12.5, but I don't think that TCU is going to win.
I don't want to hear any of this. I don't want to hear any of
I
this.
see like 34-17.
Okay, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's within a touchdown of covering.
It could be like 24-17 midway through the third, and then Georgia just uses its power.
It is kind of like interesting to me that like for some reason I don't ever feel threatened by TCU. I don't know what it is. Like from an OU perspective, like I think most of the time in the back of your mind you would want the Big 12 to win, but like in the back of your mind you really wouldn't want them to win, kind of thing. I kind of want TCU to win on Saturday on Monday.
I do too.
It'd be fun.
I would love it. It'd be super. It'd be a great storyline. Don't have to talk about Georgia and Alabama.
There are only a handful of teams I would root against in a national championship: USC with Lincoln, Texas A&M,
Texas,
and that's about it. Unless you just have a total jackass like Jameis Winston as your quarterback, that I root against you.
Yeah, I don't know what the list of teams would be that I would like actively cheer against. It'd probably depend on who I bet on. Obviously.
Well, that doesn't count. This has to be emotion.
I bet with emotion. That's what you're supposed to do, isn't it?
You bet with emotion.
That's why you have to keep working 2 jobs.
Is that what isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Oh man. Anyway, no, I'm looking forward to it. Don't harsh my buzz. I'm hoping for TCU win. The biggest question is, will I ruin dry January for the national championship?
January 5th. Yes, you will.
I've gone 5 days. That's pretty good.
Big day for you tomorrow, Josh. Anniversary.
What anniversary is tomorrow?
DC, January 6th.
Oh, God.
Oh, and on that note,
Eddie, I've kept myself out of that for a year, and then you just publicly throw me back in.
I'm just going to have to go back and watch some tapes. Yeah. Find Josh. All right, that's going to do it.
Go to Pelosi's office. He was sitting there.
We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast right here from SoonerScoop.com.